Hey, good evening. My name is Robert Newman. For those of you that are finding this video is the first video of mine that you've ever watched, I am a founder of a real estate marketing technology company that focuses on SEO out of California. I'm a 13-year veteran of the real estate marketing industry. I have been at the higher levels of senior management and recently in the last 5 years on the entrepreneurial and technology side. I have a blog that you may or may not have found this video on that ranks very well for a lot of search terms, including most of the company names for the companies that make the websites and the systems that I compete against or marry my service into and don't really compete against, but you would not know that. Tonight, I'm going to review Ylopo. Okay, it's an unusual name, Ylopo. You can see it on the screen. Ylopo is a real estate lead generation system. Currently, it focuses on using social marketing to generate its results. It's a very big, very complex tool that encompasses a whole lot of different elements, such as AI, remarketing. They use a lot of language surrounding their service, which I feel makes it feel a little complicated. This review tonight should simplify their system. It's going to get into a deep dive of their Ylopo success community, which I'm a member of. It's going to share my thoughts with you about meeting the entire leadership team. I've met the head of sales, the head of business development, the current CTO of the company, and one of the co-founders, Ji Feng. The only person that I did not review for this, or did not speak to for this review is Howard Tager, the CEO. But I know him from the past, and so I have some experience with him as a person. So I'm going to cover all of my thoughts and do the normal pros and cons. If this is your first video, I usually put everything. One, I try to make these tools understandable. Two, I try to pros and cons them out because if I'm reviewing them, they work to some level or another. If you're not seeing a review come in from me on something, I'd scratch your chin because most of the time, if all I'm going to do is get online and say, hey, this doesn't work, that seems to me like too much like just taking a shot for the sake of taking a shot at somebody, and I usually won't do it. So, having said all that, before I get into all the system stuff, pulling back the curtain, talking to you about results and expectations, I have to share a story though. I have to. I got to do it. So I actually met Howard Tager, the CEO, and Ji Feng in 2011, long before Ylopo. They were at that time building a company called Tiger Leads. Tiger Leads was another lead generation company that used PPC and an IDX system to generate leads. Quite literally, G and Howard came up with the idea of marketing by zip code and a whole bunch of things that basically every single other marketing company after them has followed along with. Like the list of people that have followed in their footsteps is incredible. Now, Tiger Leads got to be about as big as it was going to be. It was getting to the point that it was hard to even find zip codes that were available. And they sold it to, I think, Fidelity National Mortgage. And I don't remember if the sales price was disclosed. I think it was 26 million, something like that. But anyway, I don't know this for sure. This is just my opinion, but I think that Howard and G took a break. I was friends with G on social media, and I saw him do some travel and go some places. And then they came back to it, and they started Ylopo, which is a very different kind of marketing company. The reason this is fun for me is that Howard and G, I got to say right out of the gate, they are a different type of entrepreneur, especially Ji Feng. Now Howard, I just don't know him as well, but I've interacted with Ji many times. And you know what? There's a kind of personality when you're looking at these real estate marketing companies, and I am always talking about leadership. And I swear to God, I think that most of the people that watch my reviews skip over that part. And the funny thing is it really is one of the most important parts of the conversation is who is running these companies? What are their goals? What is their mindset? A lot of guys get into real estate marketing just to make money. And so what they'll do is they'll produce a tool and yes, it'll work, it'll be effective. But when they get to a certain level, they stop developing, they stop innovating. And most of them are just looking to lock you into a system, build up the value of the company, and 9 times out of 10 sell it. For all I know, building it up and selling it is something that maybe G and Howard are going to do. I asked G this very question, and he said that's not their intention, at least not yet. I always suspect that with any entrepreneur, that if you come to them with a bundle of cash, let's just say $50 million, and you say, we want to buy your widget, I think it's very hard for most people to say no to that. But having said that, the conversation came up. G feels like they've got a lot of street ahead of them for this particular service. But here's the point that I was trying to get to, and not the tangent. The point is this: it's very rare that you meet a marketer whose main objective is pursuing a better result than they themselves have created. Essentially, somebody that's obsessed with numbers, obsessed with efficiency, obsessed with doing things slightly better, multivariate testing. You don't meet anybody like that. I know of 2 guys that really kind of do that obsessively inside the real estate marketing industry. I'm one of them, and the other one is G Jafeng. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that he is the engine that drives Ylopo. I'm going to be talking things like cost per lead, and like the way that they're building their advertising, and some new services that they're producing. Now, just a footnote here, guys, if Ylopo didn't do any new services, they would still be the best social marketing company that's available for real estate. But they're not stopping. They're innovating. They're beta testing going into Google Ads. They're doing a lot of things with this core building block of technologies that I'm gonna show to you that is well beyond what they technically need to. And I do honestly believe that the drive for that, my impression, it's just an opinion, my impression of G has always just been it's fun. It's just fun to see how good you can make it. I feel the same way. It's not a matter of is somebody going to get a result. At a certain level, yeah, if you work the system, you're going to get a result. But how good can you make it? What's your cost per lead? What's your cost per acquisition? How can you leverage, like if you ever get to the point you're managing $1 million in ad spend, how can you leverage that to get like a better value for you and your customers both? How can you do it? These are all questions that in theory somebody could ask, but many of these companies out there don't ask. Now, here's one thing that I want to say right at the start of this review. Ylopo asks those questions consistently and throughout everything that I'm going to show you, which is going to be pretty short, maybe another 10, 15 minutes max, because Ylopo is very good at explaining all this to me. Okay, so let's get into it. Actually, pause for 1 second. A shout out goes as I start to skip through screens here. I've talked a lot about Howard and I've talked a lot about G. I did not talk a lot about 2 other people that I should talk the most about. So the way that I'm doing this review in the first place, the access that I finally got, the kind of review that I really wanted to do for Ylopo, was all instigated by the head of business development for Ylopo, a gentleman by the name of Aaron Franklin. Aaron introduced me to another gentleman who's the head of their sales department. His name is Sean, and I'm almost worried I'm going to get his last name wrong, Patel. And Sean walked me through a standard sales presentation for Ylopo, which is about 35 minutes long, and they use a deck. I've got some screenshots from the deck so that you have an expectation of what the sales process is going to be should you decide to call these guys up and walk through it. I hopefully am going to give you some tips and tools to make this entire process a little bit easier, but just again, it is because of Aaron, it is because of Sean. The reason I wanted to do the review and I'm so excited about it is definitely Howard and in particular G. I consider him to be a true marketer and a guy that speaks many languages inside technology, which is very, very hard to find. And so obviously I was kind of excited to see what he's built, and what he's built is really cool. So now, truly, let's get into it. Pricing. So Ylopo has this amazingly complicated, like, this is probably one of my few cons about them, is that they've made pricing a little bit hard to understand. It's not a hard concept. They're just saying, hey, the more leads that you have, the more advertising that we do to those leads, the pricing is going to change. That's it. Simple. They're saying, hey, if you upload 1,000 names to our system, it's about $75 a name. The way that pricing was explained to me by Sean, who's the head of their sales team, was it's about $895 a month to access their technology. Ji Jifeng is in places where he's saying it's as low as $300. I'm sure that there's a variance there, and there's $1,500 to set up a website. Okay, they're always going to tell you that you have to call them in order to get a quote effectively. And I don't think that that's wrong. I think that anybody that has a big team is already used to the concept that if they want to get an exact dollar figure from a marketing company that has a system in place, they're probably going to have to call those people. My estimate, my average, you're looking at an actual back end of a Ylopo, existing Ylopo license. This is somebody that is definitely doing a little bit lower on the scale, like they've got just the barest minimum in the system. I'm sure that these guys are probably at the $295 a month system tier. That's just where, that's what Ylopo makes, because we'd all probably like to know, what does Ylopo make and where does my advertising dollars go? And so, and that's not 100% clear. It's still not 100% clear to me, even though I've had all this access to all these different people. So that's definitely not necessarily a pro. It's a con. You're going to have to call them. Having said all of that, what you get for the money is a very good deal. So that's definitely a pro. All right. So let's dig into it. So first of all, what you need to understand is that you're looking at a very simple dashboard, and that the dashboard here is going to give you all these options. Okay. It once again, Ylopo. Again, I think another con about Ylopo is they come off as a very complicated system. If I was in charge of marketing and sales, I'd skip all the details on the system. I'd focus on the results, and I would focus on one of the biggest pros that is just so wildly positive about Ylopo. They've got this success community here. Okay, so and I'll dig back into that, but I just want to say that there's a solution to the complicated. Okay, they have users putting tutorials about exactly how they use the system, step by step, item by item, detail by detail. If I was the user of the system, that's all I'd really know. Give me a 20-minute video, it shows me exactly what to do. Can you do that, yes or no? In the case of Ylopo, the answer is yes. Okay, so let's just say that it's not necessarily the greatest thing, that it seems like a wildly complicated system, but there are simple solutions at the end of it if you just spent 20 minutes looking for them. Having said that, what they do is they provide you with a real estate website. Okay, this real estate website is literally one of the most simplest things that you've ever seen. This is their real estate website right here. It's really just something to do searches. In this particular case, Ylopo is advertising on Facebook. Okay, they started off as a Facebook marketing company, and they use really, really like fancy language to describe what they do. Effectively, though, they advertise on Facebook. Now, that really is an unfair oversimplification for all the different things that Ylopo does in terms of advertising. So I'll break it down to you by category. They use dynamic video ads that they create automatically. They use remarketing, which is where an ad follows you around. They have uploaded an entire copy of just about every MLS into Facebook so that somebody can actually do searches on Facebook, which is, as far as I know, they're the only company that's ever done that before. And it's pretty cool because it now turns Facebook into a system where a lot of searches can happen. Now, in case that doesn't work out, like in case people are not really getting the information they want there, they will direct them to this search page right here. Okay. And now you can do searches. Now, this isn't a very complicated thing, but what is pretty cool is that another advantage of Ylopo, but it does make it a more complicated discussion, is that Ylopo is not a CRM. Ylopo is literally just an advertising company that focuses on real estate. They're a very, very good advertising company that focuses on real estate. And ultimately, for those of you that are looking for a summation, Ylopo is best in class in terms of advertising. They're better than bold leads. They're better than everybody in terms of their actual result, not in terms of simplicity or the ease of use. I would say that Ylopo is designed for small, medium-sized, and maybe even large teams, and preferably somebody on the team that speaks the language of technology. If you are a 2 or 3 person team and you're looking at systems, Ylopo is one of the more complicated systems with one of the more robust, like all-around packages that you're going to have to get involved with. It may be too daunting for a lot of people because the next thing I'm going to get into is what does Ylopo connect with? What are its integrations? Because Ylopo itself is not a CRM, but they connect into a couple of major CRMs, and they have this way of explaining them. I lost the screenshot, but I had a screenshot from the demo. Oh, no, I didn't. Here it is. All right. So they explain them tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 as if all of this information that they give you is not complicated enough. So what do these integrations mean? It means how much data do you have access to? So I actually have an integration, a follow-up bus integration, which of all the integrations they offer is by far and away my favorite. They have Firepoint, and you can see here a brief list of some of their more common ones: Salesforce, Contactually, Infusion, Sierra Interactive, Boomtown, Sync. Basically, all these other systems can just simply dump into another CRM, okay? My favorite destination CRM of all CRMs is Follow-Up Boss. I've done a full Follow-Up Boss review once again in preparation for this Ylopo review. So if you want to learn more about Follow-Up Boss, please go look at the review. I spent a lot of time on it. I'm not going to do a full thing. I'm just going to say, hey, here's what the integration looks like, and now I have to blur out the screen again. God, I hate doing that. You can see here, this is, there we go. New leads, hot leads. So we know on the budget that we're getting here, and I mean, actually I know as a measurement of success that Ylopo for the client that I just showed you, and I flipped off the screen because I just don't want to have to spend like hours and hours blurring stuff out, is that the client is, for the $700 or so that they're spending per month, they're getting about 50 or 60 leads, and they're closing about 1 out of every 50 or 60 of those leads, which leads me to my comment about Ylopo as a company that generates leads off Facebook. Now, these guys are very good at doing it. They're very good at verifying the information that you get, and they're very good at delivering you a low cost per lead. But my experience with social leads, which is Ylopo, bold leads, everybody that I know that is working them, the numbers tend to be somewhere between 1 in 50 and 1 in 60 to get to an ROI. So if you're given 60 names, 60 good names, numbers, and telephone numbers, you're going to have a system in place to call them, which is why the integrations that go along with Ylopo are an important part of the conversation. I think that if anybody turned on Ylopo and didn't have a system in place ready to handle the leads that they're going to generate you, I think they would be in for a world of hurt. I don't think that this would be a very successful system for them because I think they'd be overwhelmed. That's just my opinion. I have another client that is currently testing Ylopo thanks to my recommendation, And I think that looking at it, they may have generated somewhere between 200 and 300 leads, which with a much larger monthly budget than what you're looking at, like $1,000 or $2,000 on the monthly budget side, but still 200 leads. You got to filter through those 200 leads to get to something good. Now, Ylopo does have a lead filtration option in the back of the system here. But I don't know how good that works. And all my examples have their lead quality settings set to low to medium. Okay, which means that so Ylopo allows you to say, hey, what kind of quality leads do you want? Every time you say you want a slightly higher quality lead, they add a few more questions on a form so that the lead has to answer a few more questions, jump over a few more hurdles, and in theory is slightly more qualified. My experience is that, and Ylopo is just another company that's very good at doing this. My experience with people when it comes to Facebook advertising and all other forms of advertising is they're very exhausted by it. And the average person doing a home search is doing 95 of those searches. And Ylopo is a very, very, very good way of getting you that person's information if they're doing a search. But to say that that person is going to talk to you, even if they filled out 6 or 7 questions, they probably filled out other questionnaires too. They're getting hammered with phone calls, text messages. Even Ylopo systems are all based on following you around online, sending you text messages. I don't think that there's any way to get past the ultimate hurdle of marketing exhaustion for any advertising systems like these, which is why my focus is on inbound marketing, which lets people come to you and gives them really high quality information. That's what I've done to address this particular thing. However, having said that, there are certainly tons and tons and tons and tons of people that I have verified in the Ylopo Success Group that I was given access to by Aaron Franklin. I've gone through here so that you didn't have to, and I've read probably a couple hundred messages so far. And there's just testament after testament after testament of people doing transactions. There's lots of comments about work or follow-up or calls, or I had to scrub a list, or I had to call for 2 months. But as a guy that's in this industry, that's not our job as the marketing company. We're supposed to give you a product that you can then turn into sales. And Ylopo is definitely doing that. And they're working on always making it better and making it higher quality. Now I've skipped over a lot of things, and I'm gonna circle back around now, because for those of you that were looking for a basic, is it good? What did you do to check it? What is this company about? I've just given you all that. You could turn off the video and go on your merry way. Consider this this 8 minutes bonus material for those that really, really want to learn a lot more about the system. So some of the things that Ylopo does is they have a way of checking, they check information validity, which is one of the ways that they're sending in leads that do tend to be good. You're going to get real names and numbers. What I like about Ylopo, if you had to say what's your favorite thing about them, they would be what I would call a database builder. Like you can enter in a zip code, turn on Ylopo, and then have a huge amount of names and numbers dropped into a database. And if you're a content marketer like me, the way that I'd be looking at that is, okay, now I'm going to build real value in there. Now they've seen videos, but the videos that Ylopo produces are scraped videos. They like put them together automatically. And that's not to say that these videos aren't cool, because they are, but the best video is going to be video that's done by the realtor and has some kind of important information or message and isn't a marketing video at all. That is a very important distinction between selling somebody or marketing to them, or trying to impart really good information and letting them come to you. Having said that, like in terms of an automated system that leverages every single medium that you can look at, Ylopo is amazing. So here's what Ylopo does on the more complicated side. So they're leveraging AI, all right? They've got, they're calling it like an assistant. They've got a name for her. Which to me is just good marketing. They're applying good marketing to their own services. All it is an AI chatbot, which will follow you around as you're doing your searches on Facebook and occasionally pop messages out to you at times that the team over at Ylopo has decided might be good or relevant. And what would those times maybe be? Well, that's where you start to get into stuff like this. You have home evaluation and videos, and Ylopo uses all this complicated language because they did make a complicated technical product. They really did. But they didn't do it out of thin air. All that G is doing is taking on all of the popular elements of today's marketing systems and putting them into one advertising methodology and then calling it Ylopo. So they're using AI and chatbots. That shouldn't be very hard for everybody to understand. They call it dynamic this, dynamic that, but what they're doing is they're scraping data from various places and creating advertisements. Okay? They're very good at it, and it's very clever, and the quality of it is very high. They probably won't be thrilled that I just said scraping data. When you call them, they can market to you, and they will explain all the really cool things they're doing. I'm telling you, I do think it's cool, and that it's neat. I just think that there's a lot of really complicated language that most people aren't going to follow that obscures the simplicity of what they're doing, because it is fairly simple. They advertise on Facebook, they collect a lot of names and numbers, they verify, and then so that you don't have to, they have an AI chatbot in there that's kind of nurturing the lead through the search process right up to the point that they register and become some kind of registered name and number. And then they're connecting their tool to other tools that will take you through the back end of the registration process and nurture the lead there. There's many tools. My favorite is Follow Up Boss. And Follow Up Boss texts once and then will send emails for a year. So if all you ever wanted was an automated system from start to finish, from lead inception to you're done talking to this lead 3 or 4 years later, with the collection of tools that Ylopo has connected into, nurtured, researched, put together as part of a system, it will do that. It will do that very well. In terms of what I'm excited about, boy, oh boy, could you develop a lot of names and numbers. And if you took a long-term view with something like Ylopo and maybe combined an inbound marketing strategy where you're using BombBomb on the back end and creating high-value videos to probably the thousands of names and numbers that maybe did not bite, because it's going to be very low percentage that are going to bite. And to get the best results out of something like this, you're going to have to be basically a full-time ISA or have somebody that is on the back end calling every single one of these leads. And that's one of my only cons about these systems. It is a really big mental shift when you take on a lead system like this. You're going to change your routines. You're going to change how you're marketing. You have to have support tools in place. Your tools probably have to have something that you can call out of. That limits the amount of CRMs that are going to work with Ylopo, because not everybody has a calling system, and you don't want to get into a situation where you're logging into 4 different things so that you can now make calls to these 600 leads that you got on Ylopo, which is an exaggeration, but I'm sure there's some people out there that turn it on and do get 600. Now imagine that if my numbers are correct, 1 out of every 50 or 60 will be a deal, but you got to call all 600. And if you're going to take my philosophies, which are modeled after people that I know in the industry that have made hundreds of thousands of calls and follow-ups to internet leads, the best way to follow up on internet leads is to call them, and to call them more than once. So if you just get 200 leads, you're really talking about knocking out 800 calls in a month. I can tell you from a guy who's spent a lifetime on the phone, run very large call centers. That's what I did before I got into internet marketing. That is a full-time thing right there. That's I'm on the phone 4 to 6 hours a day, every day, hammering out all the calls necessary to work just that bucket of leads correctly. Now that's not bad, because I do think that at the end of that effort, you're going to make money. And depending on where you are, what your commissions are, if you can make 200 calls and make 3 or 4 sales, that should be a anywhere from a $9,000 to $20,000 paycheck. If you're here in California, that's $1 million in sales, easy, probably way more. And so now you're talking about a paycheck that's 30 or 40 grand. And yes, I would happily get on the phone and hammer out calls all month long to make 30 or 40 grand. And if you're in, let's say, Louisiana, that's about $450,000 in sales. And so you're really talking about $8,000 to hammer out those calls, still making money, but not nearly as much, which is the last part about Ylopo and systems like this, where you are, what kind of real estate you're selling. Jifeng has gotten so good at generating leads that while your cost of lead, like cost of lead acquisition, changes based on the area that you're in, also changes on based on two other factors when it comes to Ylopo. They're beta testing Google leads. Google leads are between $4 and $8. The Facebook leads are between $3 and $6. So really, when you're looking at a marketing system like this, you have to take into account, where's my market at? Am I feeding just myself or a team? You have to ask yourself questions about your budget, and most certainly have to ask yourself questions about your preparedness to embrace, if you're not already doing so, a lot of new tools. Now, here's the other side of this coin. Let's say you're watching this review, you stuck with me to the end. The only guys that are really going to do it are probably either really curious or really the professionals. They recognize the value, the detail in my information. So for those of you who've made it this far, the team leaders, the big, huge brokers that have got 100 to 1,000 agents under their umbrella, Ylopo is a great tool to add on to your marketing kit. Okay, they're going to capture names at a much higher level than anybody else, in my opinion. More than bold leads by far. Your cost of acquisition is going to be much, much lower. You probably already have systems in place for calling leads and leads to flowing in. The agent to agent level at the volume that we're talking about, like telling agents, like I would say that Ylopo is a great tool for agents that are somewhere in their first or third year in their career in terms of lead distribution. When you start talking about the higher end reps that you have, I don't know that I would insist that they use Ylopo leads, or they probably have their own lead sources already anyway. But I don't think that as a veteran salesperson, being handed 50 or 60 of anything that I have to go through is going to be a real hot thing for me. Building sales teams or training sales teams or developing ISA teams, Ylopo is going to be one of those tools that is a godsend. Like, it's really going to be exciting. But when you have experienced teams and you're going to like turn on a spigot like Ylopo, unless you already have them used to other low quality lead sources such as Sync. But Boomtown, since it's doing higher intent lead generation, like other systems such as Sync, like Boomtown and Zillow, those might be higher lead qualities. And you're going to get resistance from your sales force if you switch them over to Ylopo. All leads are not made equal, and if you've made it to this part of the video, you should know that intuitively. And this is one of the lower quality leads that you can get in the bucket of leads that you could buy. The highest end, you have companies like me and Zillow. Okay, those are the highest end because we're focused on quality, not quantity. And then right below that, you have Real Estate Webmasters and CR Interactive, which are SEO generated leads, but they're generated mostly off search-based IDX systems, which unfortunately is not instilling a lot of value in the lead anymore. Even though we're getting the lead organically and that carries a high degree of intent and credibility, it's not what it used to be, if I'm honest about it. You got to do things like get them in front of video and really spend a lot of time giving them a lot of information on the site and develop a relationship with them in order for it to be high quality. And really either only the big, huge lead generators do that or your one-offs do that, like me. So you're really not talking about like a system that can be turned on without a lot of resistance for larger sales teams right out of the box. I would think that this is probably best for smaller to medium-sized teams, and certainly for small guys that are trying to build teams up. Then Ylopo is a dream because your guys will have something to call. There is gold in their hills, and you can get them used to using systems like phone systems, follow-up boss, all those little tools, and this is a great system to turn on and do that with. So those are kind of my pros and cons. Once again, I want to give a big shout out to the entire Ylopo team. I cannot emphasize enough, if it was not apparent in the rest of my review, these guys have built a great team. Actually, I'm sorry, one closing thought. Ylopo did one other amazing thing for those that have made it this far. They also have hired on actual real estate professionals using the system. They pay them a retainer or stipend or maybe a credit for the system itself. I don't know. But these guys get in here and they teach classes and they talk about their own success using the system. So in terms of leveraging Ylopo and ongoing learning, Ylopo is best in class. Like there are other systems that have really good tutorials, like Follow Up Boss and Bold Leads have great videos. But do they have entire social groups based around successful use of a system? The answer is no. The closest thing was Real Geeks with their master classes that used to be done by Jeff, I think it is. I know him. I'm just forgetting his name. But anyway, trust me, they're there. 70 videos that he did over time. I've watched most of them, and they're awesome because they're showing people using Real Geeks and creating success. This Ylopo Facebook group is even better. It really is. They've got people in here doing classes, talking about success. They've got guys dropping YouTube videos that are once again talking about features or functions that are specific to Ylopo that they're using to be successful. I'm not talking about those things because it's too granular, it's too detailed, and it would make my review super confusing. But trust me when I tell you that in terms of leveraging the system, if you're a person that is a marketing person like me or you have a little bit of drive, you're going to get all the tools that you need. Skip the complicated stuff in the beginning and just focus on is there, and the answer is yes. Just make sure that whoever you buy your system from adds you to this Ylopo success community, and you'll be off to the races. And G gets in here too. Like that's another impressive thing is that I've seen Aaron get in here and comment. I've seen G get in here and comment. So you've got access to the actual leaders of the company inside the success community. And I'm not talking that I've seen these old posts. I'm talking like they're posting in here now, today. It's awesome. Do me a favor, everybody. It takes mountains of effort to do these reviews. This one in particular, I spent lots and lots of time so that hopefully you don't have to. I've drilled down to the 37 minutes, something that I've spent 10, 15, 20 hours researching. Ylopo's reviews online are excellent. I usually cover that here. I didn't as much this time because I had different types of social proof. So I have tons and tons of social proof that says that these guys can do a good job. There are some complaints about the complications of the system, complaints about not understanding what kind of leads they were going to get. So some areas of concern are the things that I already covered. If you've liked my review, if you found it helpful in any way, shape, or form, do me a favor, thumbs up. I'd much appreciate it. It makes a big difference inside the algorithm so that other people can find this awesome piece of work that I've done. If you have some comments for me, please leave them down in the comments below. And guys, if you want to take a moment and say thank you to the entire Ylopo team, because they really opened the doors and made this particular review at its depth and clarity possible. Have a great night.